All right, we have not been on YouTube in a while. Been really busy. Been having to work extra hard in the leasing department specifically to get these properties gone. And that's what this video is going to be about is what's going on in Knoxville. How fast can your house get rented and at what price and what's shifting up or down and why. And these are my opinions. So, take it for a grain of salt, take my opinion, ask 9 other people, put them all together in Chat GPT, and then get yourself probably a even more accurate answer. But take it from somebody that manages 220 properties in the Knoxville area. The amount of 3-bedroom, 2 baths that we have, because I'm going to talk about that in a second. Uh, I mean, I didn't look it up. I'm kind of on the road. I'd imagine we have 40 to 50 of these houses in our portfolio that we manage. And some are brand new builds, other are older homes, and then there's the ones in between that have been renovated that are old but updated. And so I'm actually in a brand new neighborhood. I'm going to be talking about a house that was built in 2018 and what it's renting for. There is a lot of construction going on, so I'm sorry I forgot to bring my mic. The people are throwing rocks for some landscaping, and someone from the HOA is mowing some common grass area in this neighborhood. But all I wanted to do is walk this neighborhood. Clearly, we're in a nice one. A lot of homeowners that live here, but there is a rental property here. I don't want to give out the exact address because I'm certainly not trying to make anyone look bad. But there is a house in this neighborhood that is priced outrageously low for rent, and it was built in 2018. All right, so the craziest thing happened. I'm out in this neighborhood, and I kind of was looking on Zillow looking for properties that I thought were listed a little low, and I wanted to make a video on what is happening in Knoxville? How fast should your rental property be leasing and for what rate? So I came out here into this neighborhood, which had a rental that I thought was abnormally low for the price and a super nice house. And lo and behold, I was filming some stuff before this, which I may or may not use in this video. And I'm walking back to my truck, and this other guy rolls down his window in, big 2500 Silverado, and he's like, "What are you filming?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm doing a video on rental market. I'm a property manager with Stonebrook Properties, and I manage quite a few rentals. And I just thought that house," and I pointed at the house in the neighborhood, was quite interesting at the price and how long it sat on market. And he's like, "Yeah, that's my house." And I'm like, "Well, how's it going? Who's your property manager? Like, what's going on with it?" And he just explained he has really high credentials that he wants to see for credit income. And I don't want to put him on blast or make him sound ridiculous, because I think every landlord has a right to ask for what they want, specifically at the price of rent that he's asking for that asset. He should get whoever he wants in that unit, with regards to qualifications. So really, long story short, we're up here. I'm walking around. He stopped me. He started talking about it, and he built this whole neighborhood. So he has actually rented out quite a few of these houses, and he's telling me that they're all out of staters. People that have moved here, heard about the great city of Knoxville and want to live here. And I think that plays into the story that I was going to tell without that information pretty well. I think that we have fewer and fewer people moving here with outside income that can afford that 24, 25, $3,000 a month rent. And it's impacting landlords with these A-type assets that once got those prices. And I want you guys, before I tell you the number, to comment down below on what you think a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, built in 2018, that's 2,100 square feet, would rent for. Comment below what you think that rents for. I'm going to give you a second before I tell you. It is, let me check on my phone, because I want to make sure we're accurate with square footage. So this house is 2,100 square feet, and it's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bath. Again, built in 2018. Typically, one of these homes would probably rent for, a year ago specifically, on the low end, $1.25 a square foot. So $1.25 times 2,100, you're talking $2,625 on a reserved projection for this house to get rented. And right now, it is listed for rent, and it's been up for just over a month, from what I can tell, for $1,975 a month. So that's under $1 a square foot, which I didn't think was ever going to happen in Knoxville. And I don't believe it is happening in Knoxville, but it's something to be aware of. And to be honest, I think it's landlords that have paid all cash or a significant amount of down payment that can do this type of activity and still, in their eyes, be as a successful investment. So again, I'm walking uphill, out of shape, 31-year-old, trying to make it. But bottom line is, we're in a market that's shifting, and I would say those that have assets that rent for less are going to be winning. And when I say less, I don't mean being cheap in the market that you're advertising, A, B, C class type property. I'm saying the C class properties and the B class are in heavier demand than these A class. And it affects everyone, from what I can tell. I've only been managing properties for 3 years, so I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an economist that will tell you all the things that can happen inside of this story. But I am putting out this video as more of a documentation and, well, a documentary of what I perceive, and we'll see if I'm right or wrong. Because the A-class properties, like the ones you're seeing behind me, are going to be renting for less, then the B properties will have to drop accordingly, and same with the C. However, there's a caveat. Rent's only going to go so low. So if you have C-class properties where they are renting for, around $1,000, the rent rate is that's the floor. So like, you're probably not going to rent a lot of things in Knoxville for under $1,000, no matter the square foot and no matter the location and no matter the bedroom, because the cost of living is just quite literally there. But your ceiling of how expensive can you ask and still get a ton of people in has shrunk for everybody. So the $1,000 unit that used to be able to sneak $1,200, which is $200 more than what it probably should be getting, that's no longer happening. And so I think we're just shifting into an accurate market instead of, last summer when we were leasing, we would put something up, get 100 phone calls, everyone's begging, no one needs to see the unit, leases are getting signed. It was just crazy. Where now your average responsible applicant is saying, okay, well, I'm going to look at this one, I'm going to go check out 4 others, I'll let you know. And it's because of the amount of supply, and it's because of properties coming down in their price range where they have more options. So no matter what you own, whether it's multifamily A, B, C, single family A, B, C, you do have a decision to make as a property manager and landlord that's self-managing, and saying, okay, if people have options, what am I going to be and how am I going to stand out? And is it going to be by price or is it going to be by quality? And even when you go quality on these A-type assets, you know, you're going to have to show them quality. Layouts have to make sense. Amenities have to make sense. Location has to make sense. Past just being, a nice garage door with a nice landscaping on your front yard. So there's going to be limitations to where this house is located. That's just the reality. And so you're going to have to come back to that price point and be honest with yourself and be able to look at, well, if I got 4 weeks to get this rented, which is most landlords' expectations, what's it actually going to rent for in that timeline? I know that not everyone's going to understand this metaphor, but the reality is if you're going fishing and you only have 2 hours to catch a trophy bass or the biggest bass you can catch, what would you tell your best friend that you're guaranteed to catch compared to hopefully catch, compared to you're never going to catch it in that 2-hour time frame? Yet if we all had a whole year to catch a trophy bass, we could probably compete with professionals that go out on a weekend and can catch it in the first 10 minutes because they know the bait, they know the location, and they know the depths and all the other things that go into catching that fish within the first 10 minutes. And that's leasing. You have to be able to get market rate, but sooner than 4 weeks. So that's where expectations and reality, it just gets shifted. Because if I have 90 days, I'll get you any price you want, practically. But who wants to be vacant for 90 days, which is 3 mortgages paid by the landlord? That's like 24% of your year gouged. So just walking up and down this neighborhood saying to myself, it's crazy to see these A-type assets drop so much. And it's by hundreds of dollars. Talking houses that would rent for $2,800 needing to go for $2,400 this year. And give you the number on the property I mentioned earlier. Let me just review. 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 2,100 square feet, built in 2018, 2-story, comparable to these. I'm not going to show you the exact house. It's up for $1,975 a month. Keep in mind, the landlord wants, 750 credit, 3 times income, I assume, no pets, a lot of things that are going to limit that tenant from moving in. He also stated about $6,000 of moving costs, which I assume at that point he's thinking first month's, last month's, and a deposit, which is, it's aggressive, but I understand. We all have the right to ask for what we want. It's just whether or not the market's going to respond. And that property has been up for 30 days. And hey, that dude is rich. Maybe he can let it sit there for more than that and not care. And vacancy, oddly enough, I've had conversations with landlords. You're going to be blown away by this statement that tell me it's healthy for a property to be vacant. And you might be laughing at that, or you might be like, yeah, hell yeah, it's true. Vacancy creates less risk of a tenant burning it down or causing a flood or selling drugs or doing crazy stuff in it that has liability with the property. And vacancy gives time for maintenance teams to go in and review the quality and basically upgrade appliances, upgrade things, repair others that are below standard. And that's just me telling you what I've been told by landlords in the past. So he may look at that vacancy and say, that's healthy for this neighborhood. And heck, he might own all of these. I don't know if he built them all and sold them off, or if he built them all and he's holding on to them as just the ultimate retirement plan. So if you have any questions, leave them down below. I definitely want to summarize that I don't think that Knoxville is crashing and burning. I think things are finally renting for what they should rent for. And I think that property managers that are not doing the right things are getting exposed, and it's helping my business grow. And I've been enjoying the difficulty of our leasing because it makes us, basically it makes my company stand out. And where last year we did look successful to our landlords, but everyone else looked successful to their landlords as well. And so we finally get a chance to show why our systems are better. And honestly, we've seen chinks in our armor and we've improved them. There's a long road to go to be perfect. And I think the people that are constantly trying to innovate and find new ways to get to the property faster, get more people interested, have lower barrier to entry to applying, and the ability to protect the landlord on the backside from letting anyone move in that is not a good fit is ultimately our goal. And just walking up here, show you more of this neighborhood. We try to show properties within 16 hours of someone being interested. So, if you're a self-managing landlord and you're taking like 8 hours just to get back to somebody, they've moved on. They've probably even seen another rental and they're applying and going a different direction. So we instantly text back and schedule using an online platform where they can pick their own time around their own work or life schedule. And then we're out there within 16 hours at that property doing the showing. We also allow like multiple people to schedule at that same time. So once that time block hits, like 10 other people can go online and find that listing and also join in. So that's like very impactful towards the volume of heads that you can get through a house. And one last thing, and I'm not going to even mention it in the YouTube tell here. I want to reward those that have sat here and watched me walk around this hill and looked at these houses. If you're a landlord and you go to your listing, I would truly check your own listings once in a while and just see if the property manager is trying to charge additional fees on top of your rent. That is arguably ethical, unethical. You can believe what you want. I think that as long as landlords are aware of how property management companies make money, there's nothing wrong with it at all. But keywords, Second Nature. Second Nature is a company that I have once tried. I didn't like the experience and I shut it down very quickly. It also provides a ton of value. So, speaking on that company, there are valid reasons why a lot of property managers are going with Second Nature. And if you don't know what they are or who they are a benefits package company for tenants. So you basically have a company that's selling property managers on a per unit subscription where the property manager can choose to or choose not to upcharge the tenant further. But either way, it's a cost on your tenant. And what the tenant gets is one of them being very impactful. It's the fact that they're going to mail you out air filters, which is the key thing that got me sold originally a few years back when I tried Second Nature. However, I've realized that it was not worth the trouble because they don't install the air filter. So you still have to get the tenant to do it. And just because it shows up to their front door does not mean that's happening. And so further, just to tell you about Second Nature, it's a package. So it's air filter. They're going to sell you renter's insurance inside. And then they kind of fluff up some of the things that us property managers already do, like have a portal. So they basically build out a graphic on the listing. So if you go on to ZillowApartments.com and look up a listing and see like benefits package, it's usually through a company like Second Nature. And as the subcontractor, and then the property manager is taking that credit and selling it for at cost or upcharge. And either way, tenant absorbs that cost. And long story short, that affects your market rate. So I have seen up to $60 a month fees that are created where the tenant not only will have to pay the base rent, but this other $60 a month convenience fee for these benefits that may or may not be that impactful for them. Renter's insurance, when I was a renter, I was paying anywhere from $10 to $15 a month. And then the other added benefits are arguably things that tenant's already getting. Like, our tenants get a portal. I don't make them pay for the portal. They get um, move-in concierge, which is basically letting them know what utilities to call to set them up, so that way when they move in, they have power. And there's a couple other ones that are just kind of ridiculous, where it's like, I guess we provide that, but should I charge a tenant for that and shift what they pay monthly? Probably not. So bottom line is, if you have a property manager charging that convenience fee monthly, and it is on top of the market rent, you've just shifted how likely you are to find a tenant in that 4-week timeline. So you're telling me that $60 a month charge that provides, in my opinion, very limited value, because most of it's already going to be there, whether they buy that benefits package or not, that's not affecting your house getting rented. So someone calls into your house and goes, "Hey, I want to rent it. What's the move-in cost? What are all the fees?" And they're like, "Well, we have most, responsible property managers are going to talk about what the rent is. They're going to talk about the deposit. Some of us have animal deposits, like myself. Then you have pet rent. So every time you add these things, which we all legally can do, you are impacting the amount of people that want to move forward. If I put the house up for $1, a lot more people are going to move forward. Does that work for the landlord? Of course not. That's why it doesn't go up for that. But we have to acknowledge that there is a kind of scale where we have to decide how much can we ask and still accomplish our goal. And our job is to get the landlord the best qualified tenant paying the absolute most amount of money. And so if we're taking $60 a month out of our landlord's pocket, which is how I view it, it's not only affecting the market rent and the cash flow, but it's also affecting how quickly that house is getting rented for. And so I think there's a lot better ways to make money as a property manager. I don't have a benefits package as of now. That may change, from my opinion, in the future of learning something different. But I have looked into it. I've tried it for 3 months about a couple years ago. I didn't like it. And honestly, at this point, where the market is, I don't think I would bring it on in a time where you're trying to get everything rented as soon as possible and it's getting more difficult anyways. Why try to add another fee? If I'm trying to get places rented faster and I think that there's, a benefit towards adding value somewhere, I'm going to ask my landlord first. And I'm honestly going to ask them to cover it, because I'm going to show how the cash flow plays out more positively for them if we go that direction. And that's why you don't see me calling my landlords if you are one of my landlords watching this, because right now I don't have anything that I think is going to bring enough value to say, hey, you should spend your money in this direction. And it just takes us leasing the property in multiple websites. I mean, we're using like 8 websites on top of Facebook Marketplace, on top of 2 showing agents, me included, when things are getting really tough. And we're doing the boots on the ground activity. It's all about lead flow. How many people are asking you weekly about your property? How many people are showing up to those viewings? And how many people are applying? If you can watch those 3 variables and keep the river flowing, you will get a tenant soon enough. So thanks for watching this video. I know it's just me walking up and down this neighborhood. I hope you got a lot out of it. I think that house is really interesting at $19.75 a month. I get ranchers that are built between the 1960s and 80s rented for just about that number, maybe a little lower, but depending on square footage. But that's a classic example of just under rented property, but too high of expectations of what the tenant needs to have to qualify. And I think it's based upon his history of renting the rest of these houses out from out-of-staters that have better income coming in. Because if you have, let's say the average Knoxville family household is about $50,000. I've posted that recently. Well, 3 times the rent of even $2,000 a month is $6,000. $6,000 times 12 is $72,000 a year. So on a $2,000 rental with 3 times income, you have to show proof that you make $72,000 before tax. And that's literally way over the average or median Knoxville household income. And so that's why the A-class properties are having a harder time getting rented, because the out-of-staters that have that type of income are not showing up at our door in such volume as they were last year. Thanks for watching. Subscribe below, like my video, share it. If you could show this video to a landlord, it would help me more than you'd know, and it doesn't cost you $1. I think that we're around 220 units right now. We're going to get to 250 before Christmas. We can only really take on 2 landlords a month, because if I do more than that, it's too many opinions a month that I have to try to learn and onboard. So it's not about doors, it's about expectations, and expectations have to be clear between me and the landlord. So I only do 2 landlords a month. So reach out, we'll get started. We can get you prepped for next month, if not this month. And rent's due. Today is the 15th. You got 15, 16 more days until you got to pay me rent. So pay me rent. See ya.